So here we go. Welcome to another edition of the League One Lowdown, where I speak to fans, podcasters, and journalists from all League One clubs to get the insight going into Town's fourth season in Tier 3. I'm joined by good old Jon Palmer, from the man who covers all things Cheltenham Town. Thanks for joining me, my friend. It's always a pleasure. How are you doing? How's the summer been? And it's a hot one.
Very hot one, yeah. Very, very good to be here again, Ross. I very much hope I'm here again in 12 months' time, because that will mean Cheltenham has stayed up again. But it's been a busy summer for Cheltenham, but a good one. And looking forward to Cheltenham's second season back in League One, and hopefully it could be something similar to last season.
Definitely. You're saying hopefully we'll be speaking in 12 months. I'm hoping Town are in Championship. I hope we're playing Championship football. But if we are playing League One football again, I'm hoping Cheltenham will be there so we can have these chats always. A pleasure, my friend. Well, let's talk about last season. And as you said, this will be your second season in League One. Last season, finishing 15th. Beat Ipswich Town. How will you recap last season? Michael Duff, we'll talk about that later, but a good season as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, it goes down as the highest in the club's history, 15th. They've never done that before, so they went 2 places higher than the previous best. 4 points against Ipswich is, among the highlights. There were several highlights: beating Sunderland at home, going to Charlton away quite early in the season and winning there. Cheltenham never played there before, but the Ipswich home game very early in the season, I think that was a good time for Cheltenham to play Ipswich, because obviously there was a lot of players had come in. It was all settling down, and Cheltenham managed to get a win. But that will go down as one of Cheltenham's greatest wins. And overall, I think if anybody be at Cheltenham been offered 15th before the season, they would have been very happy. It was brilliant. There were a couple of tough games. Losing 5-0 at Sunderland, losing 5-0 at home to Cambridge was probably one of the most difficult ones. I don't think anyone saw that coming. But Duff did a brilliant job, and it just sort of rounded off his reign in the best possible way, really. And obviously now he's moved on. Everyone will wish him all the best, but everything he did at Cheltenham turned to gold, really.
Yeah, let's talk then, Michael Duff. Then he probably took Cheltenham as far as he could, most likely. Sorry to say that, but he's moved on to Barnsley, as you said. What is the current mood with the Cheltenham fans seeing Michael Duff, who's done a fantastic job there, win promotion to Tier 3, League One? So what is the current mood around the town, the Cheltenham Town fans?
Yeah, obviously massively disappointed to lose him, but I think most fans realistically would have expected him to go sooner rather than later after what he'd done at Cheltenham. And I do agree with what you say, Ross. He probably felt himself that he'd done all he could at Cheltenham. If Cheltenham have really struggled this season, it's going to be tough whether Michael Duff's in charge or Wade Elliott. And if they'd struggled this season, he probably would have seen what happened to David Artell at Crewe. Got them promoted, really good first season, and then they struggled massively in their second season, and he got sacked. So, and his stock would obviously fall very quickly there. So I think Duff might have thought, this is my chance. He was obviously in demand. Blackpool were interested in him as well. He went and spoke to them. He spoke to Barnsley. I think there were a few other clubs. He was linked with the Burnley job. Obviously, they've given that to a very high-profile player, and see how it goes there. But he's obviously very, very highly thought of at Burnley. But Barnsley's the one he's gone for, and I think he will feel he's now at a club that expect to be getting out of League One upwards, a bit like Ipswich. Whereas at Cheltenham, it's always going to be trying to stay in League One, and he did a brilliant job to do that last season. So there isn't too much animosity about the fact that he's gone. I think most people would say enjoy it while it lasted. He's going to go on to have a great managerial career. The feeling about Wade Elliott taking over is pretty positive. I think most people were quite pleased they went through a process. They interviewed a few candidates. They didn't just give it to him on a plate. But I think what Duff had created was very special at Cheltenham. And I think somebody new could have come in, and it could have been like last summer at Ipswich with all sorts of changes, total different style of play, squad ripped up and started again. But I think with Wade Elliott, it gives Cheltenham the best possible chance of carrying on the good work they were doing. They're going to play the same formation. The same director of football is doing most of the recruitment. He obviously knows Wade very well. That's Mickey Moore. And Wade was a big part of the success under Duff. So I think there's a positive feeling about Wade taking over, but I think there's also a realism that it's going to be tough, losing some key players, losing some really influential loan players, and the sort of surprise factor and all the excitement about being in League One for the first time for a few years has gone. It's going to be tough, but I think they've made a sensible choice in Wade Elliott.
Definitely, and there's gonna be interesting encounters, Barnsley and Cheltenham one night when you two face. One does return to Cheltenham, and then the reverse fixture at Oakwell. You've mentioned a few things already. Let's talk about transfer then, the sexy business, as we say on the circuit. What's been the sort of signing so far? A few loan players, a returning loan player, a few permanent deals. Round it up as you would.
Yeah, Taylor Perry would be the one there you're referring to as a returning loan player from Wolves. He came in at the start of last season, was meant to be a season-long loan, was doing really well. He scored against Charlton in that win I mentioned earlier. He picked up a hip injury, and it dragged on a bit longer than they thought. It got to January and he still wasn't fully fit, so they cut the loan short. He was looking really good though, so he's back. There's another player that's come back from last season who came in January last season, Daniel Ndulu from Southampton, who played 4 games up front, was looking good again, got injured, went back to Southampton. They've managed to get him back, and they really wanted those two based on what they did last season before their injuries. So they've got those two loan players back. They've brought in 3 permanents so far. I think there's maybe a couple more signings to come, but they've brought in a little midfielder from Norwich called Dan Adshead, who was on loan at Gillingham last season. He's looked pretty tidy in pre-season. A little technical midfielder, quite comfortable on the ball. So I know they liked him for a long time. So they've paid a small fee for him, which isn't particularly common for Cheltenham. So they obviously rate him very highly. Centre half from Halifax, Tom Bradbury. He's basically got to come in and fill the massive void left by Will Boyle. So he's a left footer. Will probably play on the left of the back three. But Boyle was club captain, and that's going to be a big loss when got his great move back to Huddersfield. So he earned that move, but he's going to be a big miss in the dressing room and on the pitch. And then they've brought in a goalkeeper from Torquay. He was Torquay's Player of the Year last season in the National League, Sean McDonald. He's going to start the season as number 2, but he'll obviously push for number 1. But they're going to bring in a lone lad from Man United who's due in next week. Hasn't been finalised yet, but he's on his way. It's Matej Cavil from Man United, who was on loan at Burton last season. So there's 5 in. The goalkeeper to come from Man United, who apparently did quite well for Burton after a bit of a shaky start at Swindon, but he's quite highly thought of at United, so he should be a decent replacement for the 2 goalkeepers that Cheltenham have lost, Scott Flinders and Owen Evans, and I think there'll be a couple more to come. But the big, in terms of outgoings, it's Boyle was the big one. They offered him a new contract. He turned it down. It was absolutely fine. He went on good terms, and he's got to move to the Championship to a team that very nearly got promoted to the Premier League last season. And then other than that, it's Connor Thomas was released, which was a bit of a surprise to some because he was an influential player, struggled a bit with injuries, and he's joined Crewe, but he was one that maybe considered himself a bit unlucky to not get offered a new deal. And then it's the loans like Callum Wright, who had such a good season, has gone back to Leicester, and Keon Atete up front from Tottenham, he was doing really well. He's gone back, but Lundulu is pretty much been brought in to replace him up front with Alfie May, although there's a couple of other players, Charlie Brown, George Lloyd, that we push in for those places up front. But they're recruiting for 3-5-2 still, so it'll be the same formation. There's a good core still there, so it's not like they're totally overhauled the team. And they seem to be getting the ones they want. They seem to be getting their first choice targets in terms of the loans and the permanents. So it's been pretty encouraging from pre-season friendly performances so far. But you obviously don't know till the first day of the season. But Cheltenham got Peterborough at home on the first day. Then they go to Barnsley. So you mentioned Duff. Second game of the season, it's Duff's first home game is against Cheltenham. So that's going to be a bizarre night for him. But, Cheltenham will fancy their chances of causing a bit of an upset, I think, that night.
Definitely. That's interesting. Oh, I like that indeed. You mentioned Alfie May. Let's talk about key players as a whole. Cheltenham. Alfie May, what a season for him last year. Great, season in League Two, getting promoted with Cheltenham. Then last year, 26 goals in all competitions. What's the current situation with him in terms? Has he has some interests? Is he going to stay? You mentioned off air, he's still got 2 years left on his deal. So Cheltenham, not going to be any rush to sell him, pretty much.
Yeah, he's always been a good player since he came in January 2020. He's always been good, and he's always had quite a good goal scoring record. But something just clicked for him last season. It was in January. He'd obviously done well, like you said, to score top scorer in the promotion season, but he wasn't as prolific as he was in League One. So there was interest in him last January from America. San Diego Loyal tried to persuade him to go to America in January. There's a few other clubs floating around. He signed a new contract. 2.5-year deal, so he's got obviously 2 years left on that, as you said. And from that moment, he just enjoyed an incredible scoring run during the second half of the season, including 4 goals at Wickham in a 5-5 draw. But it wasn't just scoring he was scoring consistently. I think he ended up with something like 15 goals or 16 goals in as many games in the last few weeks of the season, including 2 on the final day at Cambridge. So he was absolutely, everything he touched went in. And even Cheltenham fans and even Alfie May probably maybe a bit surprised with what he did, but he has worked harder on his fitness. He's become more professional. He's become more of a sort of senior figure in the dressing room, and he was easily Player of the Year last year. And Cheltenham tying him down for 2.5 years was a stroke of genius, because there has been interest this summer. The sort of teams that have been mentioned have been Sheffield Wednesday, Birmingham City, Wrexham have been interested. They signed Tozer last year from Cheltenham, who's the captain and Player of the Year. And obviously Barnsley have been mentioned because Duff knows him so well. Duff got the best out of him. But I don't think Cheltenham need to sell him. They're not struggling financially. They've not got loads of money, but they're not struggling for cash. They're not in debt or needing to sell players to survive. So 29 years old, he's just turned 29. He could go down as a Cheltenham Town legend. Well, he already is a bit of a Cheltenham Town great, but he's on the cusp of breaking a load of club records, goal scoring records, Football League goal scoring record. He's one behind the all-time record. It's only 39 because Cheltenham have been in the Football League for that long, but it'd still be nice for him to get that. And I think at this stage, I think there might still be a few twists and turns. I think that, you never know who might struggle to get a striker, or somebody might move and it might kick, there might be a chain reaction of events. But at the moment, he's at Cheltenham. He made his first appearance of pre-season on Saturday against Cardiff after a minor op earlier in pre-season, just a routine thing that he needed from last season. And if he stays, then it's another massive positive for Cheltenham. If he goes, I'd say even if they get a really good free for him, he's almost irreplaceable for the way that he was playing last season and the way that he is in the dressing room and the popularity with the fans. He's the talisman. He's the one they would want to more than anyone to stay.
I think so too. When you've got a player like that scoring your goals, you unfortunately you're going to have to rely on him. But we shall see. Now, John, second season in League One, second season syndrome. You mentioned Crewe. Their second season, they got relegated. There's other teams like that. How are you feeling going into this one? New manager in charge. A lot of focus on can you stay up? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think if we are sat here next year, obviously you'll be slightly disappointed that Ipswich haven't gone up, as you said earlier. But I think if I am talking League One with you or anyone else this time next year, I'll be very pleased, and I think all Cheltenham fans will be very pleased, because Cheltenham had the second lowest budget in League One last season after Crewe. Crewe finished rock bottom and went back down and sacked their manager. So for Cheltenham to finish 15th, they were never anything close to a big club in League Two, Cheltenham. So that's why Duff was so highly thought of, because of what he achieved with very little money. So it's going to be tough. I think the surprise factor is gone. Teams will know how Cheltenham play. Ipswich fans will remember the long throw from Cheltenham early last season. That's gone because Ben Tozer obviously left. The man who got on most at the end of them and scored against Ipswich, Will Boyle, he's gone. But what they've done really well since losing Tozer, they brought in Matty Pollock on loan from Watford. He did really well. They're trying to sign another centre-half on loan now that's due in before the start of the season. So the recruitment has been pretty good. I think they get the best they can for the wages they're paying and the small, very modest transfer fees that they pay for the likes of Dan Adshead, but they very rarely pay a fee. So it's all done very prudently. They won't spend ridiculous sums of money trying to stay up to risk the club's future. It's do the best we can. If Cheltenham go down with a brave effort, I don't even think that there'd be that many people calling for Wade Elliott to be sacked, because I think they know the size of the task. Duff guiding them to 15th was obviously Cheltenham formed in 1887, and they've never finished that high before, and that puts it into perspective really. So one place above the relegation zone. I don't think that's being negative or boring. I think that's what Cheltenham fans will be happy with. Anything there or above will be a massive success again. And they've only had two spells before this one in League One. The first one ended after 1 year, straight back down. The second spell, they managed to stay up for 3 years. But in that third year, it all went badly wrong, and they ended up getting themselves into a bit of financial trouble and went back down under Martin Allen to League Two, and then almost went down again. So I think the fans understand the limitations. They just want stability. And if Cheltenham are battling to stay in League One or challenging to get out of League Two, that's well above par or below. Yeah, that's massively overachieving in terms of the budget and the money they spend.
Well said, my friend. Well said as always. Now let's finish the video then with the head-to-heads this season. Cheltenham Town head to Portman Road on the 12th of November. Then nice little Easter Monday trip to Cheltenham on April 10th. So no midweek fixtures this time around. what are you expecting from these games? Of course, we've got a new manager in Kieran McKenna in charge. So you'll be a young manager for us, another young manager. What are you expecting? Of course, can Cheltenham once again dethrone Town? Beat him up, draw against Portman Road, and then beat them on their own turf. What do you reckon?
Yeah, last season it was a shame in a way that both games were on Tuesday night because Ipswich still brought a great number to Cheltenham early in the season. I think it was only Cheltenham's second home game, and I remember in the first half thinking this is a good team. Ipswich played really well in the first half, deservedly took the lead, and then Cheltenham obviously came back and nicked it in the second half, and it was a brilliant night. But the away game, it was my first visit to Portman Road. What absolutely brilliant ground, and Cheltenham again did really well to, even though they got called boring Cheltenham for a lot of the game, they went away with a well-earned point. So I think I said this last year, I thought Ipswich would be up there last year, and I genuinely think that Ipswich and Portsmouth are my two teams that I think are going to massively improve this season. So I think Ipswich finished 11th, didn't they, last season? That I'd be amazed if Ipswich aren't in the top 2 or 3 this season. And I think Danny Cowley will get Portsmouth going. But in terms of the visit to Cheltenham Easter Monday, hopefully it's normally warm on Easter Monday. Hopefully not this warm, but hopefully it'll be a nice sunny day. And I don't know whether a lot of the Ipswich fans might be making their first visit to Cheltenham a weekend or a bank holiday weekend. It's a lovely place to visit. It's a 10-minute walk into the town centre from the ground. So I would just say, even though it's a long way off, get there early, or if you're on the supporters coaches, try and have a wander into town, go and have a drink and have a look around the town centre. It's a really nice place and easy access to the ground, and it'll look. It's nice under the floodlights, but it'll look nice with the sun shining at the ground. They've done a bit of work at the ground to sort of spruce it up a bit. It's got a new name, the Completely Suzuki Stadium, so that's one that we've got to get used to that this season. But this isn't brown nosing. It's an honour for Cheltenham to be playing against teams like Ipswich, and last season Sunderland. This season they're going to be playing against Sheffield Wednesday again, and Derby County for the first time ever. It's like an adventure for Cheltenham. It feels like a cup tie when you play against teams like this. So that's probably why, one of the reasons why Ipswich have found it difficult to get out of League One straight away, because the smaller clubs, in that bottom half of the table, because Michael Duff always spoke about there being 2 leagues within the league. I think all the smaller clubs will be treating it like a massive cup, almost like trying to cause a cup upset, raising their game and making it difficult. But I think with McKenna, McKenna was in charge for the Portman Road game last season, wasn't he? And there were signs of him making some good progress. And I think looking at some of the signings that are coming already, I think it's going to be there for tough division again. But I think Ipswich will definitely be challenging this season. There seems a lot more of a stability and a direction and a clarity about where they want to go. This time last year, I just think it felt like it had all been thrown together, and I think it was always going to be difficult for that to come good very quickly. So Paul Cook paid the price, but I think McKenna was the man to get Ipswich back into the Championship.
Oh, Town fans will love those words there from you, John. And I'm actually looking forward to it. I know it's next year. I know it's Easter Monday, but I'm looking forward to my next trip to Cheltenham. I enjoyed myself, not the result, of course, but the whole day itself. Had a nice little chippy beforehand under lights. Ben Tozer still gives me nightmares, but as you said, he's now left. He's gone to Wrexham, but he left, I think, a week after that. So it's sort of, why didn't you leave then? But John, it's been a pleasure, my friend. Any other business, anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
I would just say, if you want to read anything about Cheltenham, obviously have a look at Gloucestershire Live or my Twitter handle, which is there, Jon Palmer Sport. Try and keep on top of all the Cheltenham stuff, and look forward to our second league visit to Ipswich in November. It was a great experience just to go there and have a wander around, see the history and the Bobby Robson. There seems to be Bobby Robson almost looking over the ground. Like the spirit of Bobby Robson just seemed to be there, and it was, we were very well looked after in the press room. The staff behind the bar even remembered what our coffee and tea orders were at halftime, which is pretty impressive. So looking forward to the season, and very much Portman Road will be another highlight.
Definitely, my friend. Well, I look forward to chatting you. Of course, we'll talk before the game. Just get to sort of see how it's November time. So a lot has happened since then, but we shall see. But John, thanks for joining me. Thanks everyone for watching. Let us know your thoughts, your comments, your feelings going into this season. Cheltenham fans, Town fans. See you next time. Bye-bye for now.